It's one of the most difficult legal issues of our times. How to protect both newly established gay rights and our long-standing religious liberties when they come into conflict. The Oregon Court of Appeals ruled yesterday against a couple who were fined $135,000 after their bakery declined to make a wedding cake for lesbian partners. The attorney for bakers, Melissa and Aaron Klein, said his clients were deprived of the Constitution's promises of religious liberty and free speech. How do we find that balance in these thorny issues when everybody's rights want to be respected? Joining us now for this discussion from Austin, Texas, is Robert Henneke, the General Counsel and Director for the Center for the American Future, along with Robin Biro, an LGBTQ activist and an Army Ranger veteran who is in Atlanta. First, Robin, I want to thank you for your service to our country and protecting the United States and your service in our military. Really do appreciate that. But I want to start with Robert here. Why is this a religious liberty First Amendment issue as opposed to what Robin's going to argue, which is something a bit different than that? Why does religious liberty and the First Amendment trump what is going on here?
Jason, thank you for having me on the program. The central issue in this case is whether the judiciary should decide what constitutes artistic expression. Legally, it's uncharted territory for courts to say what is art and what is not. And here, the Oregon Appellate Court got it wrong when they decided that the artistry expressed by Mrs. Klein in her custom handcrafted cakes was not entitled to the same type of First Amendment protection that's afforded to other mediums of artistry and artistic expression.
Now, they did have an Oregon state law that they were looking to, right? But the issue that they're going to be arguing and wanting to appeal is going to be based on the First Amendment issue, correct?
Well, the way they got around that was in going into the public doctrine that looks at ordinary businesses engaged in commerce as brick and mortar type operations that fall outside of typical First Amendment freedom of expression and religious freedom protections. But the court did that to get to the end result that it wanted to accomplish. And in doing so, it ignored the fact that Mrs. Klein's business was not just an ordinary bakery. It was a service and artistic expression that she did using her hands in creating these type of cakes, which was the way that she expressed herself. And the Constitution is clear that the First Amendment protects that type of artistic expression, which unfortunately the Oregon court failed to recognize and got wrong here.
Now, Robin, as you look at this case, how do you see it? Because my guess is you have got a little different take on this.
I do, and thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity. I want to make one point clear. The reason that the fine was $135,000 was because these bakers doxed the individuals who were declined service. They put their personal information out, attacked their children, turned them into CPS, and they vilified them. This has nothing to do with artistic expression. They flat out denied them service. That's discrimination. That is not an American value. And frankly, I would like to point out that I really see this as an identity politic issue on the side of the right. LGBT Americans just want to be treated like everybody else. The golden rule. I do not want to be turned away and discriminated against. This is not about cakes. This is just wanting to be treated the same as everyone else. We would frankly like to stop this identity politic issue of being singled out. I happen to be a gay Army Ranger. My Ranger buddies never treated me any different than any of my peers. As long as I shot fine and held my Ranger standards, nobody cared.
Now, do you believe, Robert, though, or Robin, I should say, do you believe there's any room for religious liberty? I mean, if this really, truly is a long-standing, true belief in their religious liberty, why can't they make this decision?
That's a great question. I'm glad you posed it. There's a case in Colorado where a customer wanted to make a cake in the shape of a Bible that said homosexuality is a sin. And in that case, that was a First Amendment issue, but the baker sold them the cake, sold them the bag of icing, and said they could write whatever they wanted to on it. So in that case, it didn't violate any laws. They didn't discriminate against the person's religious liberties. So that's where the line is. This is about discrimination, though. These people were flat out told that they were not going to be served because they were gay. And I understand the argument that why give a homophobic baker your money, but the issue is it comes down to discrimination. And that's just not, like I said, it's not an American value. It's not okay. We are all just Americans. Please, let's move past identity politics. No one cares that I'm gay, and this religious baker has no right to force her religious beliefs on me in a public business.
Robert, where is the line with religious liberty? And this case is ultimately going to be decided by the Supreme Court, because there is a different case that is pending before the court, correct?
Well, that's right. And this Oregon case, the Klein case, will end up being a footnote of little consequence, given that the United States Supreme Court is currently considering the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. And in the recent oral arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court, the justices, specifically Justice Kennedy and Justice Roberts, were talking about where this tension exists in the tug and war between the two sides, and how they're grappling with that issue. Unfortunately, the Oregon Appellate Court avoided that issue and instead shoehorned Mrs. Klein's artistry into just rather the public doctrine in terms of a brick-and-mortar business. The real discrimination here is in not recognizing that the masterpieces that she created with her hands were her form of expression, and that she's entitled to First Amendment protection for that artistry, especially insofar as that it's an expression of her also genuine, deeply held religious beliefs.
Robin, I'll give you the last word quickly. We've got just a few seconds.
Last word, like I said, just please treat us the same as anyone else. Live by the golden rule. Treat us the way that you yourself want to be treated. Please, discrimination is never okay, and that's what I see this as.
Gentlemen, thank you both. Happy New Year.